You're listening to the More Than a Worship Leader podcast. Here's your host, Gary Durbin.
Welcome to the More Than a Worship Leader podcast, where we talk about the local church and worship ministry. And with me tonight, we're recording, is two very good friends and two fellow worship leaders in the area. And I have on my right Jim Bossler at Riverwood Chapel.
How's it going, guys?
Yeah. And then my other good friend Byron Burns at the Chapel.
Ooh, the Chapel. 90
The Chapel.
90-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm at Redemption Chapel, and I've been in the area for 8.5 years almost. And it seems like, from what I can tell, a lot of the chapel churches seem to come out of the chapel. Is that right?
Yeah,
Kind of
that's what I've been told. I've seen the grid, the historical grid. So yeah, so blessings. It's a blessing to be a part of church that's been a part of planning many churches in the area. So yeah, that's the story, and we've been celebrating that whole thing this year. So
Oh, really?
yeah, it's been cool. Yeah, this is the 90th year. So we've been celebrating that, even bringing back some of the pastors like Newt and Paul to guest preach and talk a little bit about the chapel story and the history and all that. So it's been neat being the current worship leader and just seeing how the Lord has blessed me to be some little part of that story. So
Yeah. And you've been there about as long as I've been at Redemption Chapel. It was about a little over 8 years.
I've been at the chapel for 7 years.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah.
So
That's cool. So both of you guys, if you will, so I can start with myself. I've been in ministry for 22 years. I've been at 4 churches over those years. Jim, how about you?
So I've been in ministry for about 19 years, and I have been at 2 different churches, and both of them were planted by the chapel.
very cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because both of those,
Riverwood,
CCC and Riverwood.
they're like a first generation
Very
church
cool.
plant,
Very cool.
daughter church.
Yes.
Redemption,
Yeah.
yours is a granddaughter plant, or
Yeah.
That's crazy.
whatever you want to say.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So in fact, I think I saw Riverwood or Redemption on that timeline. So
Oh, really?
yeah, it's a cool little grid.
Just-
I have to find it for you guys and send
The
it to you.
tree.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
a cool tree.
That is
to
cool.
see.
That's a cool legacy.
Yeah, it is a cool legacy. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've been at 6 churches that I even think of in terms of, churches that really define my 26 years of ministry. So yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's a little bit.
And what's your title at the chapel?
I'm the worship pastor at the chapel, full-time worship pastor there. Yeah.
And that means what?
That means that I oversee all things music and worship. I even oversee a full-time tech production person that's part of our ministry team. So a lot of my job involves developing the worship culture and recruiting singers and musicians for our worship experience. And so that's my role at the chapel as the worship pastor. Yeah.
Jim, what's your title at Riverwood?
I actually don't know it.
Just go to the website and find out.
Yeah, should go to the website and figure it out.
Right.
I am the director of worship and missions.
Okay.
So we would be considered a mid-sized church, and I was hired to do worship full-time in a full-time capacity. But you guys know, in a mid-sized church, you put on a couple different hats.
Right.
At a small church, you put on all the hats, right? But
Right.
yeah, at a mid-sized church, you got to pick up some of the other slack, and missions is something that I've been a part of and have appreciated and have enjoyed giving thought to. And so, in addition to doing all the things that you basically said,
Right.
trying to set a culture for the worship ministry, having a few staff under my leadership, and a volunteer team of musicians, and planning the corporate worship time in our church gatherings.
Yeah, and my title is Worship Arts Director, which has really been my study title over the years, which incorporates basically music and media. That's what I tell people.
Okay.
Like
That's a good description.
graphics, video, website, social media, stuff like that. So that's been my forte with those things. Well, and as we all know, worship leaders don't always stay at their churches. There's transitioning that happens. They leave one church, go to another. And that's what we're here to talk about, is how do we do that in a healthy way? Because I think that's really important, because I'm sure you guys have seen it. I've seen it. People leave a church in an unhealthy way.
Sure.
And that's not fun. So as worship leaders, or if I could say more than a worship leader, we want to do that, even that aspect, in a very healthy way, God-honoring way. So I want to talk about that. One question I want to ask you both, but start with you, is why do you think worship leaders look to leave churches?
I was talking with one of our good buddies locally at Grace, and I asked him that question too. And one of the things that I feel like I've been observing is, I think especially when we talk about worship leader majors who are coming out of schools, are so enamored by, writing the newest and latest songs, which I think is great. The sort of the performance upfront aspect of worship ministry. And then when they get introduced to all the things that are not that about worship ministry, right? People, administration, budgets.
I'm trying to be quiet and listen to you.
I know, budgets, having to work with your pastor and other staff, and the dynamic of that, and learning how to interact with each other and work well together. Those realities about it, I think sometimes it becomes sort of this shocker to where, oh, really? I'm not going to be able to just sit in a room and write songs and play my instrument, and which those things are good. But I think what's happening is that's sort of the wake up call. I think that's happening, that they discover that, wait a minute, this is actually hard work. There's other things to this than just the arts part of it that we all love. So
you feel like they think they discover there's more to it, and it could be that they don't want to do all that work.
Yeah, they either don't want to do that, or they discover they're maybe not quite ready. So if they are desiring to, at some point, to pursue this full time, they either decide to go, how can I do this either in a more part-time basis, or as an intern basis, or whatever, so they can develop into those roles, or they decide that this is not my thing.
Yeah,
I can't do this, right? So I think that's maybe one of the reasons for some of that short time and those quick transitions, maybe.
Right. Yeah. How about you, Joe?
I would say I think the reasons are many, and I think there's something to that. I think the reasons are many because the nature of the job of a worship leader is so subjective, and that subjectivity can be like the source of what wears you down. For me, I was worn down. I've only changed one church. For me, I was worn down by other things, but from my experience has been that it doesn't matter where I go. There are certain issues of subjectivity that are just going to be present. I think that's what you're kind of getting to.
Yeah, I love
people just, they can wear you down. It doesn't matter. I love every person in my church. I love every person on my team. And I'm not so wired to just be 24/7
right.
with a certain type of personality. And so you've got to, there's subjectivity in the personality of the people you work with. There's subjectivity in the preferences of your congregation.
Yeah.
And if you stack something else on top of all those constants that are kind of just, hey, that can grind on you. But
right.
if you like these other parts of your job, man, it's great. For me, I think some of the other things that were in the mix for me were wearing me down to the point where I was getting exhausted. and I was finding myself to not be motivated to do the job that I was being asked to do. And so I think that's my answer, Gary, is that I think because the reasons can be so many, there can be so many reasons why a worship leader leaves. I think that subjectivity, moving targets, it's too loud, like that stuff is all baseline. And then if you introduce anything additional, I think that can start to be that time where you start to look. Maybe you're the flight risk. Maybe you're saying, I think it might be time for me to leave. I don't know. Yeah. How about you?
I mean, I have made, what is it? I guess 4 transitions. Is that right? Or 3 transitions, really. And like you're saying, there's different reasons. I can pinpoint different reasons. I can see where I made a transition in the past where like, man, this is a move of God. Then I can see transitions in the past where I was getting completely run down, burnt out. That could be burned out. I've learned can manifest itself in different ways. It could be physically burnt out. It could be emotionally burnt out. I definitely have experienced the emotional burnout. And that can be as a result of maybe just not a good environment to work in, maybe not a good leader to work for. Those are reasons that exist out there. Yeah. So it's real. And worship leaders experience these things. They move on at times. So the next question I have is, what are some keys to really making that transition healthy? And that's a broad question because it could be, how do we stay healthy? How does the transition, how can we help make that healthy? So when I ask the question, what are some keys to healthy transition? What do you guys say to that?
Well, I came late to this appointment of sitting down to record this because I wanted to talk to my kids about this. Because I think that's a huge thing. If you are a worship leader and you have a spouse, you have children, I think one of the key things of healthy transition is you've got to know they're along for the ride. And so, yeah, we had a discussion about it. I'm going to keep that private.
That's great.
We had a discussion, and it was really good. It was helpful for me to understand and actually come here and say, man, you've got to really count that cost, and how that's going to impact your family, and maybe even maybe come with the understanding that, hey, this is going to take time. Everybody at your new church already knows the church that they go to. And my kids, my wife, this is all new to them. And so, yeah, I'm the guy who's coming in there and I get a supercharged diet of what is this church like? Because I'm there, 5 days a week, sometimes 6, sometimes 7, but I think that I can leave my family in the dust, and knowing that I don't want to do that. I think that's part of a key to a healthy transition.
That's good.
Now, something else that was really helpful for me was to understand that, hey, the church that you left, and I know we're talking about healthy transitions, and I have some thoughts about why maybe mine wasn't healthy at first, and now I feel like in God's kindness, he revealed that to me. But I think the thought behind a healthy transition is, hey, you might be leaving a church that you feel like has issues, but guess where you're going? You're going to a church that has issues. And you're gonna bump into people at your church who have some issues. You're gonna have a pastor who's got some issues. You got a tech guy who's got some issues. You got people on your worship team that have issues. Guess what? You have issues.
No.
You have issues.
No.
And so I think just coming into the idea that, hey, if you're thinking you're coming to greener grass, yeah, there could be some elements of that, but you got to come in with a realistic mindset that, hey, the reason why we even do this job in the first place is because we need Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And that means we're not perfect. And that means we have issues, and we're going to bring them with us. These people are going to bump into our own stuff. And I think the beauty of that is just trying to understand, like, hey, I want to make this work, and just having a healthy mindset of like, now I can do what I want to do. No. Now you can do what God is, leading you toward in this kind of imperfect mess of just being around people that love Jesus just the same as you, and we're just aiming our lives at Jesus together. And if you have that mindset, I think you're already you're trajecting in a good way.
No, I like that. That's good.
That's good. Yeah, what I hear you saying, it's kind of a twofold thing with your answer. It's selflessness, thinking about your family. That's big, because it's easy for us. And I had a older pastor tell me that in one of my transitions, where he's like, don't forget about your family. You're coming in here, you got a new job, and you've got stuff going on every day, and it's a new thing.
Right.
But your wife is at home, and your kids are at a new school, and there's all these things that you have to think about. So there's a selflessness that has to come into play to really keep your household healthy. And then you mentioned the idea of humility, which is the idea of keeping yourself healthy as you're looking to transition, as you're transitioning. Okay, I am not perfect. I am also flawed. The church I'm leaving is flawed. The church I'm going to is flawed. And I'm a part of that church, and I am flawed as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's good stuff. How about you, Byron? How do we make a transition in a healthy way?
Yeah, just listening to both of you guys has got me reflecting of coming to that humble place of experiencing God's grace and being able to confess and own what some of my motivations were for leaving. Right. So when I reflect on that, of the 6 that I can clearly remember my journeys and my experience, some were motivated. Some of the transitions were motivated by money, becoming new father. So I got to now find that job where I can get paid more without coming off as though I think ministry is about money, because we all know it's not. So some of my transitions, that's what motivated. I can clearly point to probably maybe 2 of those 6 that I could say to you were motivated by calling. A clear, like, okay, I believe God is calling us to do this or go here. And those were probably times that I can even reflect and go, I believe in those calling moments that God was bringing our family together and some sense of agreement on that and unity in that, of sensing that together. But I can recall times where it was clearly Dad was either trying to climb the ladder or go the next level, and just said, hey, this is where we're going. This is where we're going to go and do it. And me learning, even with all that God in his sovereignty still is going to bless it, right? Because no matter how you shake it, it's calling, right? God's going to use you as long as you're submitting it that way. But like in those transitions, when I reflect on it, as I've grown, I'm learning that the things to value are my family. I had a pastor tell me once that Byron, always remember that when it's all said and done, no matter in all your moves or in all your ministries, your family is going to probably be the most consistent piece of that. So make sure you're doing that part well, loving them well, honoring them well, trying to do better with your wife, of listening better, including her in some of the tough decisions you got to make in your life. And so I think over time, I just started learning that so well that or at least I think I've learned it well. Brenda might say some different things to that, but I think for me, I've learned over time that the key to healthy transition is to, no matter what is driving it for you, is to do everything you can to serve and finish well. Meaning be completely present in where you are.
The church you are transitioning from.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. As well as you can, right? Mm-hmm. There are some circumstances that make that hard, right? We could probably all speak to that, whether that's me contributing to that or another coworker or boss who's contributing to that. But the key still is to remember the why and who called you to what you're doing, and to be focused on that again in terms of like, this is why I'm doing this, is because I feel like God's placed a call in my life to do it. So I've got to finish this thing well. And so to me, that's been kind of the key to, when I reflect on all my transitions, that I've done my best to have healthy transitions. And I know that's not true for them all, but that certainly has always been my goal, to try to have those values as I'm thinking about transitioning. I think as of late, for me, Jim, you hit it on the nose. I think I learned as I got older that the grass is not greener. It's just planted at a different place, right? It's like, you know what I mean? So I think learning that lesson has been valuable. That has helped me stay at some places to not assume that the grass is green on the other side, that maybe God's teaching me something different and I need to learn that where I am. So that's good. That's another, I may be jumping ahead of you a little bit.
That's all right.
Gary, I have really enjoyed, I remember a time when I met with you and when I was in the middle of processing. Mm-hmm. I've appreciated your wisdom over the years. So I don't know if you were planning to answer this question for yourself, but I kind of want to hear yours.
Right. Well, yeah, for sure. Byron said something that I think is super profound. The idea of finishing well, and it can be hard to finish well, mm-hmm. right, at times. And I have been at transition spots where I've had the leader bless me on the way out, and I've had the leader curse me on the way out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The curse part can, and I'm using pretty strong language, but that's kind of how it feels in those moments. Those can be hard to finish well, mm-hmm. but it's not impossible. And that's right. The thought that came to my mind.
That's good.
It can be hard, but it's not impossible. And so if we can at all, if possible, leave there in a very peaceful way, mm-hmm. and I think there's a scripture about that, that we can leave there in a peaceful way, then it's worth it. And why is that? Because we love the local church. We love the church. And I remember sitting down with you, Jim, when you were thinking about your transition, and the biggest thing that was gnawing at you is that you were worried about your church that you were mm-hmm. transitioning from. And I think I told you what my dad told me, which was the church is going to be okay. It'll keep moving. Mm-hmm. It's not on our shoulders. It's the Lord's church. So it'll be okay based on that huge truth.
Yeah. If I can bump into that a little bit, I feel like when I first left, I was hurt and kind of taken personally by changes and philosophical, and maybe even just that the idea of the pace of change that was happening was so much that it was exhausting me, which is kind of what I was talking about. And so, yeah, I left in that frame, kind of hurt and exhausted. And I feel like what's been great and definitely in humility been able to kind of process this is that the Lord in his kindness moved me however unhealthy the transition was, in a way where I could see my lack of fitness for the job. And I'm talking about the old hymn meaning of the term fitness, not like I was out of shape or something.
Yeah.
Maybe I was out of shape, but I mean, I just wasn't a fit anymore. And so I needed time to look away and face a new congregation and face a new pace and face a new thing, to turn back and look at a successful church that I transitioned to and have been experiencing success with and everything, and looking back and seeing a church that I left that's also enjoying success. And I'm not mad at that. I'm actually like, praise, oh my gosh, right. In God's kindness, he made a place where I was no longer a fit, and he put me in a place where I was a fit. And that's so great. Like, I just to be able to look back at that and be like, oh my gosh, the Lord did that. I was like I said, if I left in a hurt way, and I might have hurt some people on the way out, I think the reflection looking back is, man, look what God did. We all just weren't fits together. It just wasn't the right fit. And now look at what's happening in both places. And so I rejoice over that now. And I feel like that's my story of health in that.
Yeah,
I didn't leave healthy. I would admit that I didn't leave healthy. I left kind of limping a little bit.
Sure.
And I feel like the Lord was able to kind of fix the limp, and now I can look back and be like, oh man, look what the Lord did there.
That's a great sign of health, when you can rejoice in your past, or in your past situation or past church, and rejoice in them moving forward without you. That's a great sign of health. And it's a great perspective of the church. It's not our church, but it's God's church. So another major chunk of wisdom that my dad gave me years ago, in this idea of transitioning churches, is he said, just make sure it's about where you're going and not where you're leaving. So it's going instead of leaving. That is the principle we're shooting for, in my opinion, in my dad's opinion, about having a healthy transition when you're going from church to church. So when you think about going instead of leaving, what's the difference?
What do you think about that, Jim?
I only have one transition under my belt.
Yeah.
I can only tell you my experience. Now, I think I've walked through this with some other people, but I mean, you're talking about the greener grass stuff, and it's not greener. I would agree with that, but I would say my choice to go to the church that I decided to go to was that I could catch the whiff of, hey, I think some of the things that are kind of gnawing at me a little bit. I don't think I smell that over at this other place. And so when it was time to decide, I was looking at that. But I mean, if I'm honest, I still was like, it was about leaving a place where I felt like I wasn't thriving, or, whatever.
And let me just say this.
Yeah.
And maybe I didn't point this out, but there is a leaving aspect too. Like, you can't, you're naive if you don't think there's a leaving aspect.
Right.
So for you to recognize that, that's completely normal.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was looking at a congregation that needed help building a worship ministry. They were kind of leaderless for a season of time. They had a leader for a short time, and then that leader ended up not staying at that place. And so there was a pretty consistent time where they were lacking like steady leadership. And
Mhm.
I was at my previous church for 16 years. I've got steady, right? I was I was processing that. I can help that. I can help that. I was thinking these folks love the idea of multi-generational worship, maybe even pushing in on some of that diversity stuff that I've enjoyed. Let's press in on that a little bit and let's see what happens. And that's, if you talk about going to, I felt, yeah, multi-generational. We're doing hymns, we're doing recent, we're doing all kinds of stuff. And I felt like that's, hey, I can go there. I'm going there.
Yeah.
And so the way that you described that, I think, yeah, that's my answer for that.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. As you were saying, I was just thinking about, someone told me once, like sometimes in the leaving, maybe even sometimes your comfort level has to be rattled to see where God wants to take you, to where you have to go, right? So when I think about my transition from the church I was at in Pennsylvania to come to the chapel, it was shaky, right? It wasn't a good transition. It wasn't a good experience in the transition. But I clearly remember, based on everything I shared with you guys, of like what my motivating things were. I clearly remember me making a decision and saying to the Lord, I tell you what, this is not maybe the most enjoyable ministry I've been a part of, most challenging. But if you're saying I'm supposed to stay here, I will stay. And I will figure out how to be the very best person you've called me to be in doing ministry at this church in PA. And so the moment I decided to do that was when I was approached with the opportunity at the chapel, but I wasn't quick to jump to see it as the green grass. I actually asked the question of, God, are you calling me to go here? And when I reflect on that journey, I recall having lots of peace in a place where it was not, and where it was unsettling, right? But I had peace about it, and the Lord had grace enough to give me to go, let's just talk with them. Let me see if this is where God is calling me, not let me see if this is the next job for me. And I think learning how to walk through that, learning how to transition that way, was such a beautiful experience. And I think it's the reason why, without even counting the days or counting the months or counting the years, I wake up and I realize I've been here for 7 years. Because I really believe I'm in a place and season of calling. That's what really motivates me where I am. And I believe through that attitude, it's allowed me to the point you're even making, Gary, where it's saying, yes, there was leaving involved to go. Like over this last 7 years, I think I've experienced that in a way that has been transforming for me, like I don't think I ever have before, to where if God is going to shape me for something else, I'm thankful that I have learned how to be present where he has me. So that I can see clearly that if a change is going to come, it's because God is once again saying, you're going to have to leave to go. So I like that idea of the leaving versus going, because I think they are different. And so yeah, that's how that's all kind of hitting me now, which is kind of really kind of special, because it's also allowed me to enjoy the life that I'm experiencing with family and with relationships, I feel now I can engage in those because I'm not always thinking about where's the job going to take me next. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's good wisdom.
Yeah.
So when your dad said that to you for the first time, was that in a time when you were, I think I gotta leave?
I think I gotta leave.
Or was he, I mean, you obviously, he's been in ministry for a while, so you've been around him for a while. Was he saying that stuff before you were ever doing ministry, or was that a did your dad tell you that at a time where you're like, I think I need to leave?
Yeah. I wonder how many worship leaders are like me, in that probably at some point in every church that you're in or that I've been in, I have hit points where I'm like, I think I need to leave here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something else. And I'm sure it was in those multiple conversations that I had with him that he reminded me of that. You know, it's not about leaving. It's about where, if God's going to take you somewhere, it's got to be about that.
Mm.
And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, because we can get in a rut where we can be in a church and not be present, like you're talking about, Byron.
Mm-hmm.
And we can be frustrated with this or that. And all of a sudden we're thinking about, man, I'm going to leave this place at some point. Instead of just being present, instead of investing and being part of your church, joining your church on mission and missing out on all that, you're sitting there thinking about leaving. And if the Lord's going to transition you, if it's going to be healthy, in my opinion, I think it's going to be about, he's going to show you where to go at some point, if that's in the future.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely think there's probably multiple times my dad
Sure
reminded me of that over the years.
Yeah.
Well, the last question is the $1 million question, which is simply, should I stay or should I go? So how do you figure? Yeah, sing it. How do you figure out whether you're supposed to stay or whether you're supposed to go?
So I remember we were going through a really tough season of, even many staff, deciding to go, some remaining, but many deciding to leave. And certainly in that season for me, you have that temptation of like, how is the ship doing at that time? All the while kind of going, sensing that, okay, I don't think this ship is sinking, but I think we're certainly going through quite a storm. Should I stay or should I go was like a resonating question for me. Should I stay or should I go? So that question was there, but there was also me praying about, well, if I'm to go, then the Lord's going to have to show something to me. But in the meantime, I'm staying until that happens. Had some opportunities come my way to go, pursued one of them very, very intentionally, to a point where that new opportunity was ready to pull the plug to hire me. And Brenda and I both went to candidate and everything. And I clearly remember we went on this trip. We were offered the job. We came back. And this was part of the thing where I was sharing with you guys of me learning how to do better at engaging Brenda, involving Brenda in the process. And she asked me a question, and she simply asked me, do you believe God is calling you to go? Right? I knew in my heart of hearts that he was not, but I sure wanted to go, not because there was trouble, but because the opportunity I saw to go to looked awfully amazing in terms of what I saw myself going to. It was an opportunity to go back to California, be close to her family, all those things.
I wondered if it was that one.
Yeah. And I got home and she asked me that question, and which threw me off, guys, because I'm going, wait a minute, you get to go back to California. Why are you even asking me that question, right? To stay in Ohio. That already blew me away, where I took that as a sign that the Lord was doing something here. And I clearly remember saying to her, gosh, babe, everything in me is telling me I'm not supposed to go, that I'm supposed to stay, that the Lord did all of this to say to me that I want you to stay. And I remember saying that with tears, the whole thing, with clarity, knowing that that's what God was calling me to do. And so I say that to say, I do think that there is an important part of when you're asking that question to be in a good, healthy spiritual place of prayer about it, of really seeking the Lord, of really seeking counsel and having wise and safe people to bounce things off of. And in that case, for me, the most important person in that process was my spouse. And it was just so powerful and affirming for me. But I think all those things are really important in that process of asking that question, should I stay or should I go? And I think the Lord, I'm going to hold on to that, Jim, for a while. I think the Lord, just in his grace and mercy for me, just allowed me to be in that space with peace and just really trusting his will and his plan. And so I think for me, ever since, I've just been going, okay, that's the way to do it moving forward, So I don't know. I don't know if that even answers the question, but that's some things that...
To the guy that's been at 6 churches, the main story that you're talking about is the stay story.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My experience with my spouse was different in my transition. My wife had been ready.
Yeah.
She was ready long before I was. And I was thinking through oh man, our people. I love these people,
Mm-hmm.
I love all these people. I don't want to leave them and things like that. And so, really it did just come down to a few moments where the Lord kind of revealed himself. I thought that I was going to have to leave ministry, get a secular job, and find the right church, because I was so scared to leave a church and just go to another one because of that whole idea of like, hey, you're not going to go find the perfect church. There's going to be issues at this new place too.
Right.
And so I thought, no, the way I'm going to beat that is I'm going to go out and, I'm a handy guy. I thought I was going to go and work construction and do some, stuff like that. And none of those things were ever turning out. I applied at different churches and I knew that it was time to go, but I knew that I needed to leave, but I didn't know when it was time to go.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
And as though the Lord knew that he was going to reveal to me that you can plan all this, but this is how I'm going to do it.
Right.
It was a mutual friend of the pastor of the church that I'm now at, and myself. And he connected us. And that's when the Lord in his kindness, like you said, like I was saying, that was the time. That was the time for me. Okay. The Lord has provided that place for me to go. And so for me, gosh, should I stay or should I go? If I was going to tell somebody, hey, it's time to go, it would probably be, man, for me, I knew it was time to go when I was a job that I had loved for so long was one that I felt burdened by. If maybe if you feel a burden to get up and go to this job that you have, I would encourage you. You might be nearing the time that you need to go. But if that burden is consistently overriding by, man, I love these people. In my experience, staying to be with those people had tremendous benefit, tremendous, like, I stayed a lot, or part of reflecting on why I stayed was, man, I love all these guys. I love all these people, men and women that were were there the whole time along with me. We learned about how to worship more fully together as a church family. And so I guess if that's overriding, if you keep coming back to, but I can't leave these people, I would encourage you, see how long you can ride. See if there's something that can't be amended or.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I agree with that. I know that was a lot of what was driving that for me. So.
Yeah, I think there might be less regret in staying than in leaving a lot of times. I think there can be times where you may have left the place and you shouldn't have, and there can be regret. But if you stay, I think you might be able to see God working. Or it could be that the ultimate thing is you just pay attention and listen to the Lord as he's leading you. Go where he's telling you to go. Be where he's telling you to be. And that's, to me, the answer to this question is actually asking the question. And that's what I've experienced in my life,
that's good.
Is asking the Lord the hard question of, should I stay or should I go? Because sometimes I don't want to ask him.
Right. I think it takes courage to ask that question.
Yeah, sometimes I want to just do something and I don't want to know what he wants me to do. But is in those times, I remember sitting on an airplane after checking out this big church one time, and I asked the Lord a question I hadn't asked him all week, and that was, is this the place I'm supposed to be? Because I don't know that it is. And this overwhelming peace came over me, like, yep, you're at the church you're supposed to be at right now. So I think just simply asking that question is a very, very healthy thing to do. And it's not always the easiest thing to do.
No,
but we do it because we want to be healthy and we want to be in the center of the Lord's will. Why? Because his way is perfect, the Psalms say. So we want to be in the middle of that. So, well, I appreciate you guys. This has been an awesome episode, and I hope it's super helpful for worship leaders who listen to this, who might be sitting in a place right now where they're frustrated, and they're at a danger of maybe even getting in the flesh instead of the spirit and making a decision. I hope this helps them to really center in on God's will, because it's the best.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Please add this to your podcast list, review it, and share it with others. And don't forget about Gary's books, More Than a Worship Leader and More Than a Band, available on Amazon today.